Hey guys, in today's video I'll be doing another update on the tropics, on the very, very active Atlantic for the hurricane season. Man, we are just flying through now the rest of the names on the pre-designated list. We have Hurricane Paulette. Paulette became a hurricane much earlier this morning. It's now at 80 miles per hour. It's a weaker end Category 1 hurricane. Pressure's at 976 millibars. And it's moving northwest at 14 miles per hour. And then we have Rene, which is continuing to dissipate and die out. It's a depression at 30 miles per hour. Pressure's all the way up at 1,011 millibars, moving northwest at 9 miles per hour. I expect it to be fully dissipated and gone, and the NHC releasing their last advisory by most likely later this evening, early tonight. I think definitely by the time tomorrow comes around, it will already be gone and will already be fully history. And then we have Tropical Storm Sally, which is now in the eastern Gulf, about a little over 100 miles to the west of St. Petersburg, Florida, and it's at 60 miles per hour. Pressure's at 998 millibars, and it's moving west-northwest at 12 miles per hour. Then we have Tropical Depression 20, that is over the central to eastern tropical Atlantic, which is at 35 miles per hour. Pressure is at 1,006 millibars, moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour. Tropical Depression 20 is likely to become a tropical storm actually now by later tonight, most likely more towards 11 p.m., 2 a.m. So really kind of overnight, not looking at as we head towards the later evening into early tonight. It's more kind of overnight into later tonight into middle of the night while we're still sleeping. And then there's this other disturbance in the Gulf that is not likely to become much of anything, so I'm not really going to talk much about that at all. It's just disregard that really entirely. Then we have this other high chance disturbance in the eastern tropical Atlantic, which is just to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands, which has a 70% chance of formation within the next 2 to 5 days. And it says environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for additional development during the next day or so while the system moves toward the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and a tropical depression is likely to form before it moves over colder waters and into an area of strong upper-level winds by Tuesday. So most likely we'll see by like tomorrow, getting towards Tuesday, this one become a brief tropical depression, but I don't know. I don't know if this will become a named storm. Maybe it could briefly, but it looks like this one will mainly just be a high chance of development to be a tropical depression, and then it'll move over the colder waters and be torn apart by those strong wind shear values in the central northern Atlantic Ocean. If we look at the 5-day tropical weather outlook, actually, in fact, there's another disturbance area over here. There's another disturbance that will be coming off the coast of Africa, going into the next couple of days. And after that point, once it goes over the water, some gradual development of the system will be possible thereafter as the disturbance moves slowly westward over the eastern tropical Atlantic. This has a 0% chance of development over the next 2 days just because it's still over Africa, but it has a 20% chance of development over the next 5 days, and we may see that go up a good bit. We'll see how much more likely this other disturbance is to become maybe another named storm or depression. But again, in general, really, the Atlantic is definitely living up to the peak of the season tier with 3 kind of named storms. One of them's dying out. Another one is a tropical depression on its way to become another named storm. So we're looking at 3 named storms and tropical depression. We may briefly, very briefly, have 4 named storms happen at once right before Rene fully dies out and becomes fully history. But we'll still continue to see like 3 named storms at once happening over the Atlantic for the near future going into this upcoming week. So that is very, very interesting and just very, very kind of unprecedented, honestly. This whole season's generally been unprecedented in a way. Now let's go to tropical tidbits, and let me zoom this out a little bit so we can look at Paulette, and let's look at the satellite imagery for Paulette. It is now a weak Category 1 hurricane, sustained winds of 80 miles per hour, and you can see it's already forming kind of an eye feature there within the center of the system. It's still trying to get its act together a little bit. It's not the best looking, weak hurricane, but it is forecast to kind of strengthen a good bit more. And maybe briefly, actually, the National Hurricane Center does seem to be forecasting, just briefly, it does get a major hurricane status at 115 miles per hour as it's curving back towards the north and east out to sea after it hits Bermuda as a Category 2 hurricane. So that is definitely something we're going to have to watch, because between now and when it does get to Bermuda, it could go from what it is now 80 miles per hour to maybe 100, 105 mile per hour Category 2. So that's some decent strengthening that it could potentially do between now and when it hits Bermuda. And it does look likely that it will hit Bermuda pretty much head on. So anyone living in Bermuda, please keep your eye on this system. Make sure you are prepared for this system, because it will likely bring definitely lots of rough surf and heavy rain and strong winds. So some areas definitely could see some flooding, but again, we'll have to see how that goes. Now, here's the intensity model guidance, and you can see it's already in Category 1 status, already in hurricane status, and the models do have it strengthening from here, definitely becoming a Category 2, and majority of models do get it towards Category 3 status, so we could see it become maybe a weak to maybe slightly moderate Category 3 hurricane before it quickly starts to decline in intensity and starts to die off heading into 3 to 4 days out from now. Now let's look at how, should I show you? No, I'm not going to show you what, I'm not showing you what Rene looks like. We all know what Rene looks like. It looks like crap. It's not going to be doing anything whatsoever. It's just dying out entirely. But here's the satellite imagery for Sally, which is getting towards a stronger tropical storm. And actually now with the newest advisory at 11 a.m., it is now forecast to make landfall in southeastern Louisiana as a weak Category 1 hurricane with sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. So the intensity of the system with the models it's showing in the National Hurricane Center seeing that has backed off a good bit, because they were originally forecasting Sally to become maybe a strong Category 2 hurricane making landfall in the southeast Louisiana area. But we'll see. I mean, I still do think it is decently likely that Sally could get to Category 2 status. And I mean, who knows? Maybe it strengthens so far that it could potentially even get to Category 3 status. But I do still think that it is likely that we could see Sally get towards at least a weak to moderate Category 2, maybe high in Category 2. Yeah, I don't think it will end up peaking at just a weak Cat 1 hurricane, honestly. So, but in any case, this is what Sally looks like in the satellite right now. It looks very, very healthy, has lots of great convection blowing up around the center, has great outflow, will not be affected at all by any wind shear or dry air. It really has everything going for it to intensify. So we're really going to have to watch Sally closely, because it could really, honestly, there is a decent chance that it may rapidly intensify at some point. Of course, no one knows when a tropical system will rapidly intensify, but the Gulf right now, this time of year, we saw it with Laura, and now Sally could definitely rapidly intensify going into tonight or tomorrow or Monday night, so we'll have to see. We'll really have to keep an eye out. Here's the intensity model guidance forecast for Sally, and you can see they have it at a medium to strong tropical storm. Generally, all the models have it strengthening a bit more to some degree. Majority of models have it getting to Category 1 status. The model intensity guidance has really backed off from showing it getting to Category 2 and even maybe close to Category 3 status from the latest runs for the intensity guidance for Sally. But you can see models still show it getting towards maybe moderate to high in Category 1. So I definitely think Sally could maybe overperform a bit according to just looking at the intensity model guidance, and could get to Category 2 status to some degree. And there's still a bit of an outside chance that it does get to Category 3 status, but there is still somewhat of a chance there that it could do that. And actually, here's the biggest problem right now with Sally is that it is moving at a decent clip right now. It's moving at around 12, 13 miles per hour to the west-northwest. but the hurricane model track guidance is still very, very spread out in general. It kind of has it anywhere making landfall from around like Lake Charles to near like Pensacola, Florida, or Panama City, Florida. So anywhere from the Florida Panhandle through kind of central coastal Louisiana, it sadly could make landfall. Though of course the majority of models have been making landfall more towards right around southeastern Louisiana, southeast Louisiana, Mississippi border on New Orleans. So that will most likely be where Sally actually does make landfall, but it's very concerning that the models still are pretty spread out with where they think Sally will make landfall. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. But now let's look at how Tropical Depression 20 looks, and now it is a tropical depression, and right now it does not look all that great on satellite imagery. It now has started to look a lot more just like general amounts of showers and thunderstorm activity with some spin to it. But I mean, we just got to give it, I think, just a little bit more time over the next day or so, and it will really start to get its act together a lot more and become a tropical system, a named tropical system. And I mean, the National Hurricane Center is forecasting it to potentially become a tropical storm by later tonight. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. All right, so here's the hurricane model track guidance, and the model track guidance is a lot more concise. It definitely has it just heading more towards the west and then curving more towards the north and west, and avoiding the Caribbean and the Leeward Islands. It seems like it will be more of an out-to-sea storm, honestly. Now, I really think it may still slightly go a little farther west before it curves north, but I think it will curve north and just kind of head more out to sea. Maybe impact Bermuda, but I think it's still likely. It's still more likely that it will just be more generally just an out-to-sea storm, not affecting any land, be picked up by a cold front, just sent out to sea. Kind of like what Paulette will end up be doing after it impacts Bermuda head on as a Cat 2 hurricane. Will be picked up by a cold front and pushed out more north and east out to sea. Any chance that it could have continued kind of more to the northwest after Bermuda, closer towards the east coast, especially the New England northeast coast, that's not going to happen because of that cold front. Now here's the intensity model guidance forecast for Tropical Depression 20, and you can see it. They've really forecasted to actually become a tropical storm, like the National Hurricane Center was hinting at, within the next 12 hours. So, I mean, we could see that happen honestly within the next 12 hours. So getting towards midnight tonight. So that's definitely kind of likely, and all the models definitely have it intensifying pretty far, and majority of the models get it to hurricane status, Category 1, Category 2 status. The HWFI gets it all the way to mid-range Category 4 status, but it does seem likely that it could get to Category 2 status, maybe Category 3 status. I don't know if it will get any stronger than Category 3 as of right now. But, it's still going to be intensifying very far because it also has a very conducive environment, not much wind shear or dry air around it, and it has extremely warm sea surface temperatures to fuel off of. So we definitely could see this become a hurricane, honestly, within the next 36 hours with a good amount of models showing. But I definitely think we'll get to hurricane status within the next 2 days, actually, in fact. Within the next 2 days for this system. So that's very, very concerning. Here's the GEFS ensemble model track guidance. You can see it is also showing it getting extremely strong, more or less going out to sea, directly out to sea, not even getting anywhere close potentially to Bermuda. There is still that chance that it could maybe go slightly farther to the north and west and get close towards Bermuda, but still be more of out to sea and not get any closer towards the U.S. or anything. That's what Tropical Depression 20 is looking like. And now let's look at what the models are showing for the entire North Atlantic with the tropics. All right, so let's point out some things here. So there's Sally, there's Paulette, there's Rene dying out very quickly. Here's Tropical Depression 20 and that other high chance disturbance, and then as we head farther out in time, we'll see that other disturbance move off Africa and maybe see it try to become something. You can see there's Sally hitting most likely southeastern Louisiana, like generally the track is showing from the NHC. And again, New Orleans actually, in fact, people living in New Orleans definitely, hopefully a lot of you are already starting to prepare for Sally, because it could honestly hit New Orleans and impact New Orleans pretty substantially. In fact, the storm surge, I didn't show this, but the storm surge forecast for Sally for kind of the New Orleans, Mississippi, Alabama coastline could get as high as up towards 11 feet. And that is getting actually, at this point, pretty close to the total amount of storm surge Laura created for southwestern Louisiana when it made landfall there a few weeks ago. So that's definitely something to be concerned about. And then you can see Laura just hit, Laura, no. Paulette hits Bermuda and then gets pulled out to sea by the cold front. And then there's Tropical Depression 20, by the way, and there's actually that high chance disturbance. Tropical Depression 20 becomes fairly strong, and that high chance tropical disturbance could become briefly a tropical depression, maybe a tropical storm briefly as well, before dying out. And then you can see Tropical Depression 20 continues towards the north and west, more out to sea, and gets picked up by a cold front and pulled out to sea. Now, the GFS does have it getting actually pretty close towards Bermuda, so that is maybe something Bermuda should keep an eye on. So that's definitely something to really monitor for people living in Bermuda after Paulette even. And then actually getting all the way towards the end of the run by September 29th, Tuesday, September 29th, the GFS also hints at another tropical system there, getting towards way north of Hispaniola, towards the Bahamas and Florida. So, that's very far out. That's at the end of the run, 384 hours out. We're not even going to really think of the possibility that will happen. Of course, there is always at this time of year, especially with how so far September has gone with this year's hurricane season, and in general how this hurricane season has gone, how active we could continue to see the tropics be all the way through the end of September. So, we'll just have to see how that goes and plays out. But you can see, generally the GFS is showing Paulette impacting Bermuda, heading out to sea because of a cold front. Tropical Depression 20 becoming fairly strong, maybe towards a major hurricane, but also being pulled out to sea by also another cold front. And then this high chance disturbance maybe becoming a brief tropical system to some degree. Sally impacting southeastern Louisiana, Mississippi with extremely heavy rain. Heavy rainfall totals for Sally could get upwards of a foot in some places. So really the highest rainfall amounts is really anywhere between 10 to 15 inches. So up towards 15 inches of rainfall on top of maybe some areas getting, let's say, up towards 15 inches, and then on top of which storm surge could be up towards that double digits storm surge amounts of 10 feet or maybe slightly more. So that's very, very concerning. That's honestly, that's very... That is, it's very concerning. Please, people living from New Orleans through more Mobile and Panama City and just the whole Florida Panhandle, especially the westernmost parts of the Florida Panhandle, please make sure you are the most prepared for Sally, depending on where Sally tracks and makes landfall. Just make sure everyone in those areas everyone living in those areas, you guys are the most prepared, and make sure you are prepared as much as possible. And now let's look at what the European model is showing. And all right, here we go. So again, there's Sally, there's Paulette, there's Rene quickly dying out, Tropical Depression 20, and the high chance tropical system. We move this out farther in time, and the European has Sally becoming a very tight vorticity, being landfall, and then Paulette has very tight vorticity as well. Tropical Depression 20 becomes a fairly strong system as well, being pulled out to sea by a cold front, as you can see there as well. And then Paulette kind of does a bit of pulls out to sea, but then kind of does back of a loop, according to the European model, into the central, northern, but eastern part of the tropical Atlantic. So this is very, very interesting. And that doesn't really show much of anything else for the tropics, not any good, strong indication of any other tropical systems forming. But again, that's very, very interesting with what it's showing for the tropical systems being monitored right now. The CMC model, we'll look at the CMC model again, just because it's one of the more major models that we kind of try to trust. But you can see, I guess, it does show Paulette and Sally becoming pretty strong, pulled out to sea. Sally kind of doing some interesting stuff. Doesn't show much of anything really for Tropical Depression 20 again. As you can see, it just has it going directly north, not becoming much of anything, and not really showing much of anything else for the tropics after all of this active activity of Sally, Paulette, Rene's potential Teddy, most likely becoming Teddy from Tropical Depression 20. So that's what the CMC is showing. Nothing impressive. It's just totally disregard that. The La Nina, we are officially in a La Nina now, and we'll have a La Nina through winter into the rest of winter, again towards next spring. So that's the pattern we'll be in for winter, and we'll see how the La Nina, what the La Nina does for this year's winter for the U.S. But you can see it's very cold throughout the entire Enzo region for that La Nina, especially getting towards the especially getting towards the central, eastern part of the Enzo region for the La Nina. This is where the coldest sea surface temperatures are. But yeah, that's what the Enzo region is looking like. And you can see 3.4 region is very, very cold. It's getting much colder, is definitely well within the La Nina territory. The Nino 3 region is also within La Nina territory, definitely very well within La Nina territory there. Nino 4 region is continuing to decline, getting closer towards La Nina territory. It's not in La Nina territory yet, but it's getting closer towards negative 0.3 degrees Celsius, and we'll see how much farther down it cools down. But there's Nino 1 plus 2. It's also very, very cold at negative 1.745 degrees Celsius. So that's definitely also well within La Nina territory. And also real quick, let's show you what the sea surface temperatures are for the Atlantic Basin. You can see where Sally is, especially the Gulf. You know, it's boiling there. That's where really the warmest and hottest sea surface temperatures are. Paulette is also within very warm, very conducive amounts of fuel for sea surface temperatures. Tropical Depression 20 as well. Tropical Depression 20 is also very well within very warm, very conducive amounts of sea surface temperatures. Rene is also within some warm sea surface temperatures, but is again being killed off pretty quickly. And then the high chance development area could briefly become a tropical system before it goes into these cooler waters over here. But again, generally the Atlantic is very, very conducive for tropical development as we head farther into the peak of the season towards the end of the season. All right, the Wikipedia page for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season, as you can see, we have a total of 20 depressions so far this season in total. 18 total storms, 6 hurricanes now, 1 major hurricane. We have 6 now because Paulette has now become a hurricane. 117 total fatalities this season. Total damage is at around $14.67 billion. Rounding up, we're at pretty much right around $15 billion total damage. Again, that's not too damaging for hurricane season. Even though this hurricane season has been so active, it's the total damage is much lower just because the majority of the systems did not really impact much land and were also very short-lived and weak. But the majority of the damage is due to Isaias and Laura. So there's that. But again, we've had so much activity there. You can see hurricane warnings are up for Paulette for Bermuda. Sally, you can see hurricane warnings are up. Hurricane watches are up. Tropical storm watches and warnings are up. Storm surge watches and warnings are up as well for Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, the Florida Panhandle. Here's Tropical Depression 20, likely to become a tropical storm maybe even by around midnight to 2 a.m. advisory overnight tonight. And then, we have 3 active name systems currently in the Atlantic. We could have Teddy join it for a brief amount of time, having 4 name systems active at once before Rene dies out, and we're back to having 3 name systems active at once again. But again, you can see we have had so much activity so far this season, and we will likely be in the Greek alphabet by the 20th. Of September, so by next Monday, not tomorrow, but the following Monday, I think we will likely be getting towards the Greek alphabet, maybe within the Greek alphabet, but I definitely think within that range, 20th to 25th, we will definitely be within the Greek alphabet by the time we get to the 25th. I think it's maybe slightly more likely that we'll be actually within the Greek alphabet, or beginning the Greek alphabet at least by the 25th, so by the time we're into next week, we'll definitely be looking at the most likely potential that we will be entering the Greek alphabet. So, second time in history that we've ever we will ever be going into the Greek alphabet other than 2005, which 2005, of course, was a much more damaging season than this year, even though this season has also been very, very active. The majority of this season's activity has been very short-lived and weak, but still, we've had a pretty damaging season so far. It's been a decently damaging season, nothing extraordinary, but the total ACE so far this season is at 52.525 units. So we are definitely getting some decent. We're definitely getting towards a decent ACE. We'll see how far up we get in the ACE. The ACE amounts might not be as high as we thought it might be by the time we get to the end of the season, but you know, of course, that can definitely change just like that, especially once we get towards into the Greek alphabet, and we just continue to see maybe this amount of activity occurring for still the next couple weeks. We could really boost that ACE total really far up, and especially if we start to see some more intense systems, and maybe a bit more intense systems happen getting into the rest of September and into October. So that's really it for today's video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed it. Really hope it was you found this video helpful. And again, people living in the central to eastern Gulf Coast, make sure you are very prepared from New Orleans, Lake Charles, New Orleans to around the western part of the Florida Panhandle. Make sure you are extremely prepared for Sally, because it will bring pretty strong winds, very heavy rainfall, most likely pretty damaging amount of storm surge to some places. So do not take the Sally lightly, even though currently it is a strong tropical storm. It will strengthen a good bit more before making landfall, most likely right around the New Orleans area. So again, the season will continue to be most likely very, very active as we head through the rest of the season, and you know, that's just really the truth of it. We're just going to be in this kind of very active amount of activity all the way through the official end of the hurricane season at the end of November. So hopefully you guys really enjoyed. Again, please remember to like and comment if you found this video helpful. And if you're a first-time viewer and you liked what you saw in today's video, if you like the tropics-related videos, I do tons of that on my channel. So if you really like that, please consider subscribing. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.